first game to see who our 8th champion will be.
That's right.
I have a feeling today is going to be very interesting with all the changes.
It's going to be exciting. I can't wait to see how many sword decks we're going to see. I have a feeling it's going to be a lot. With the nerfs that have happened, sword, I feel like it's going to be absolutely massive, and it's going to be Runecraft versus this is Dragoncraft, right? It's Ryu.
This is Ryu.
Ryu.
Yeah, Dragon.
Great.
Ryu is he channels the power of the dragon.
Gotcha. I'm going to assume this is D-Shift. Is that a decent assumption?
D-Shift,
as opposed to Daria.
So the big thing about D-Shift is it typically runs little to no followers. I mean, Levi is pretty okay just because you get the spell boost, but having the two frat boys in there, Clark and Craig, kind of tell me that it's probably Daria.
Probably Daria, yeah.
Probably Daria, but who knows? Who knows? It could be anything. Maybe it's just a deck that he built just because.
Gotcha.
No clue.
Gotcha. And Unlucker getting a really good curve with the Dragon Oracle into the Rahab. One of the best curves you can see in Fantasy using Kaleidoscopic Glow on the the Craig. Just to get that extra spell boost yet again on the next turn. I don't think he's worried about this 2 damage he's going to take.
The big problem here is so far we see a lot of very fast-paced cards, right? We see Scyther, we have Forte in hand, and so already on board we have a Grimnir and a Rahab that's pumping up. There's going to be a lot of damage coming down on Fantasy soon, and if it is a Daria deck, there's no Daria in hand. In fact, there's not a lot of spell boost cards available in hand at all. Emilu is a 2/2.
Right. He's got spells, and he's got Clark and Craig as well, but there's nothing to really spell boost with all of those tools that he has in his hand. And Unlucker, he's got Sybil, he's got Forte, and then Bahamut after that. He's going to be able to play Sybil this turn. He'll be in overflow, and he's going to, the healing is not really going to matter, but this Rahab is already getting buffed up as well, too.
Yeah, this is going to be a real tough situation here.
Yeah, Fantasy's not careful. This could be over really quickly.
Opts to take down the 2/2 here. And he's going to trade with Rahab and now full board control. Now, there are a lot of spells on the hand of Fantasy, so he should be able to find some way to navigate out of this situation. Finally does a Daria come out.
He gets a Daria, and he was able to get the 2-cost Piercing Rune, so he's got that in his hand as well, and the Angelic Snipe being able to take out that Rahab with 1 health. Man, that's got to feel good.
So now it's time for Runecraft to really try to bounce back, but he's going to be playing a lot of spells here, and that's going to open up Fantasy to take face damage from Unlucker.
Now that the Daria's in hand, he can feel really comfortable about emptying out his hand, really getting as many resources on board as possible and using all those spells to try to make that Daria play happen.
Really wants to empty out his hand, so I believe Clark will spell boost 2 times, and Craig will spell boost 2 times? Once? So that's going to knock 3 points off Daria, and he's going to spend 5 for it. And unless he draws something else, I think Daria is not going to be able to be played this turn, but he really wants to expend his hand before he drops that Daria because he's basically going to throw away all these cards here.
And another Levi in his hand is going to give him a Crimson Sorcery.
And that's so important, right? Because he can't swing on the Forte.
Right. Very important to take out that Forte. Do not want another Forte coming out on the next turn, just being able to just like ramp up that damage exponentially.
Here it comes.
Being able to spend a 1-cost spell to get rid of a 6-cost follower, that's definitely an efficient trade, I would say.
So next turn he's going to be able to Demonic Strike and Craig and then play the Daria as well. And so that can be a pretty solid turn, but it does put him in this awkward spot where Unlucker can respond with a Bahamut. And many times a big issue with Daria is unless you happen to get a very, very strong second hand and spell boost a whole bunch of it, you can kind of run yourself into a corner where you draw again and you don't have a continuous option. So,
and even if, I feel like even if the Daria, he gets a good hand from the Daria, the Bahamut or the Grimnir is just going to come out next turn, and if there's Ulgers, if there's Blade Mages, he'll get that base damage from the Blade Mage. But it's going to come down to this draw. He's got the Blade Mage and the Ulger and the Emilu as well. He's going to be able to get a full board if he wants to.
He doesn't, but remember, because he has Bahamut in hand, and I don't know if Fantasy's, I have to imagine that he's ready to play around it. But you don't want to commit too much right now.
Very true, very true.
He's going to throw the Blade Mage in there. And that might be enough to convince the Bahamut to drop.
Right, and he gets to keep the 0-cost Ulger and the Emilu, but with only Demonic Strike and Contra Golem in his hand, he's not even going to be able to fill out his play points next turn, depending on the next card that he draws, of course. And a Bahamut right here can get massive value being able to take out those 4 followers on the side of the field. So we'll see how FanTaSy decides to end his turn. He's going to send out the last Emilu, try to get a full 5 followers on the board. Another Bahamut in hand. Now he's got to feel so comfortable playing that away, knowing that there's another one in hand for him.
Yeah.
And FanTaSy is sitting at 13 health points already. 1 attack and it's over. It doesn't look like that FanTaSy has an answer to this.
Yeah, he has no evolution.
He's going to be able to get 2 followers on board, but a Grimnir, and the next Bahamut, a Grimnir is going to be able to clear the followers, and the Bahamut is going to swing for face.
Yep, there it is. What a strong hand. I mean, it's the most unfortunate thing for Daria in this current meta. Dragon plays so fast because it ramps up so quick. Shadow also plays very quick because it gets so many followers on the board and hits you at turn 6. Turn 7 is really dangerous.
Right.
You really need to have Daria right in the opening moments.
That's why it's such a risky archetype to play, is because, like we just saw, if you don't have it early enough to spell boost and really get that full 5 board of followers a few turns earlier, then it can absolutely be detrimental.
And I mean, it wasn't even the worst situation, right? When FanTaSy drew the Daria, he didn't need to spend a ton of spells, right? He still had his Crimson Sorcery, he had the Piercing Rune, he had the Angelic Snipe, as well as Clark Craig because he bounced it back. And I believe Craig actually did boost for 2.
I think you're right, yeah.
So he actually had a ton of boosts. It wasn't a situation where he had to actually unload all of his boost options and then Daria came up, because that's kind of the worst situation possible, right? You just don't draw your Daria for so long. But FanTaSy's going to take another crack at it, and we've got a Forest Craft deck here.
For Unlucker.
We haven't seen this in a while, right? Forest Craft, by and large, has been kind of ignored.
Right.
But now with new changes, maybe it's coming back. And interestingly enough, Crystalia Tia was one of those cards that was actually kind of foregone for Lily, for Aaron, you know? And just kind of, I think people didn't really see much of a value, I guess, perhaps with Grimnir in there, with Aaron in there, felt like you have kind of enough wards to tide you over.
So do you think Crystalia Tia, what do you think that says about his win condition that he's going to have in his deck? Are we going to see a Silver Bolt with White Wolf, or are we going to see Jungle Warden?
I think it could be both. Likely, I'm leaning on it being without the Wolf Bolt.
Right.
I feel like Wolf Bolt, as that, we talked a little bit about it with Ignidius, once you add another card into your combo, it makes it become so much less consistent. Oh, nice. Elf Bounce Elf.
Right.
Going to be able to remove the Emilu. And again, we see a situation where we talked about this. You don't have Daria in your opening hand. You're going to need to play Craig on things like Oglers, which isn't the worst, but you want that Daria, right?
Gotcha.
But yeah, I'm leaning on kind of just the Jungle Warden Roach kind of archetype of Forest Craft. I think it's a little more consistent, a little safer to play.
Right. Yeah, that's what I'd like to see. He's got Aaron, he's got the Roaches in hand. He's building the pieces of the puzzle that he needs. And with another Ancient Elf, if CpV.FanTaSy and an evolved Ancient Elf on the board, is that another one in hand? If CpV.FanTaSy doesn't realize that there's another Ancient Elf, this could be absolutely nasty, getting to bounce those elves back and forth.
Yeah, the bouncy castles. Doesn't happen often because people are pretty dead set on removing Ancient Elves when they do come out.
Oh, yeah.
And
he's got Demonic Strike in hand. Easy 3 damage right there.
Yeah.
He's not going to play. He's going to go for the Altar.
Evolve. It's going to allow it to survive with 1 health. And he's going to keep 2 Craigs on board and get some face damage.
Oh, come on! Oh, come on!
Very efficient turn for FanTaSy, and he's only got 2 cards left in his hand, a Demonic Strike and an Animated Mutagenic Bolt. Unlucker's just going to play for the Roach, try to just take out that Olger immediately with that 1 health. It was a very prime target. 2 points for that, not a bad trade at all.
The big thing that I'm seeing right now, and this is one of the reasons why Tia has a hard time, especially when you don't run Princess Mage or Fina, is that it's a very late game card, right?
Absolutely.
Even if you have 2 1-drops, playing Tia is basically a 7-turn card, or 7 play point card, right? Because you play the 1 and the 1, and then you play Tia.
Right.
And when you're looking at Unlucker's hand, what is he going to commit to have that Tia take into effect, right?
Right, yeah, you didn't have the Elven Princess Mage for the 0-drop fairies. It's going to be real difficult to play 2 followers, 2 cards to really get the maximum effect from that card. But he does have the Aaron, he does have the Dance of Deaths, and with so few followers in the hand for FanTaSy, a Dance of Death could be absolutely insane. Could be crazy being able to get rid of one of the followers that he puts on board.
Mutagenic Bolt in hand for FanTaSy is actually going to be really useful, especially when you have a health advantage over your opponent. It kind of ends up in a situation where you can actually kind of race out your opponent by just having that ticking damage every turn and just surviving the end of it. Currently, FanTaSy doing really well early on. Big concern is he's actually running out of options. If he just draws into the Daria, he's not really going to be... I would imagine that there would at least be one turn before he can play it.
And Unlucker was able to get the Fairy Circle from that last draw, enabling him to get the Tia play
just in time, too.
Just in time, not a moment too soon.
Let's see what the draw is. Time Worn Mage.
Without
that means
orb.
turn 9 Daria at the earliest. And you know...
Could be Mutagenic Bolt this turn with a Piercing Rune to get an extra 2 points of face damage. That'll be 5 damage that Unlucker will take before his next turn.
And I think it's really important to consider using Mutagenic Bolt now, because you do not want to take any damage to face.
Right.
It's been a while since we've seen Forestcraft, but as far as FanTaSy knows, there could be a really painful Roach combo waiting for him.
Right. It could be coming out this turn, but with 3 of the mice already on board, it limits the Forestcraft player from getting the fairies on board and and the goblin mages and filling out the board, because it limits the number of cards you're actually able to play. And the healing there absolutely necessary, being able to mitigate that 3 damage that the mice did, or the rats, I should say.
So 3 damage coming down here just from the ping. There's not really going to be a way for FanTaSy to swing through, and you know, that's what happens when you play Daria, right? Sometimes you just don't get your draws. I feel like 2 games in a row, FanTaSy's sitting there waiting for that Daria, waiting, and he just did not get it. The most uncomfortable thing for it too is on a mulligan, having Daria in hand isn't even the most